plugged it in, huh? Hi, Margarita. Margarita, are you there?
Hi there. Yes, I'm sitting in a new desk, and so I'm having trouble getting everything set up since this is a new station. And
Oh, you got moved?
no, just temporarily. They cleaned chambers. It was a deep cleaning, so they did. The seats were all steam cleaned, the carpets, the curtains, all furniture was polished. It was quite intense. So there's a strong odor, and then it was wet. So yeah, I've been working out of Al's former office.
Wow. I hope they cleaned out the duct work and stuff because that was, and the ceiling, because that was a big health problem for Councilmember Landry.
They did a really good job, I must say. I mean, it smells like Downy in there. And the seats, you could visibly see a difference in the room.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. So was this meeting announced, publicized?
Yes, it's on our website.
And is there an agenda?
There is. Let me, Cecil, am I able to share my screen? Can I please share my screen so I can share the agenda?
Yeah, just give me a moment to give you yeah, it looks like you're okay. Let me just unshare mine. By the way, we're live, just so you know, we're being broadcast right now, just FYI. So let me stop sharing, and you guys are live.
Good. Thank you, Cecil. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The right tab.
Hi, Sergio.
Hi.
Okay, and Margarita, can you enlarge that a little?
Yes, and I'm going to send you both the link.
Okay. So basically the agenda has just the new business portion. I just wanted to make sure I followed the agenda properly.
Yeah, just the matrix. And then I think I met with the city manager earlier today, and we have just a few bills that have have upcoming hearings this week that we're going to focus on, since I think this is a time-certain 60-minute meeting.
Right. And I think we haven't convened the meeting yet, but I think I printed out your last email. So is what you have updated from your last email?
So this matrix is as of July 6th. So I'm not sure if the last email said July 6th or not, but that is the last the
one, let's see. It was the one you sent out someplace here. Legislative. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a date on it. I just have the date I printed it, so I don't have a date on it. It was a Word document.
Okay, well, I just sent you the agenda link so that you can have.
Okay, but I've got all my notes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there should be, if there's a difference, we can point that out. The only difference might be this hearing date column, if there was an update in the hearing date, but otherwise, then it should be.
Okay, good to go.
Good to go. Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to fix my screens here. Okay, so thanks everyone for making time to show up and go over this. We actually have two issues to go over. One is the status of the last meeting and the emails with recommendations and responses from both Councilmember Lopez and myself. Anyway, I got to do the formal thing. Hold on. Got to do the formal. Can you scroll down to the, yeah. So we are convening the legislative subcommittee of City of Campbell on Thursday, July 8th at 2 p.m. To protect our constituents and city officials, the city staff, and the city requests that all members of the public follow the guidance of the CDC. The legislative subcommittee will be conducted via telecommunication, is compliant with previous provisions of the Brown Act and the Executive Order N 2920 issued by the governor. And anyone who wishes to speak on this may dial, press 9 to speak. And I think other than that, we are in compliance with all the regulations. And the purpose of the meeting is to cover the status of everything that's at the legislature now, and to make sure that we've executed on previous decisions. Okay, so I'd just like to follow up and say in June 23rd, we had some letters to go to the legislature on SB 478, SB 9, and SB 10. Did those letters go out?
I'm sorry, SB 478, SB 9, and SB. So the the update I was providing to both of you, I was waiting. Letters did not go out because I did not have formal direction for a letter to go out. So there was no letters on those 3 bills that were sent. The only letter that was submitted was SB 555.
Okay, so I think there was formal direction to send the letters out on Tuesday, the 22nd.
I don't recall that we,
Yeah,
unless, what position did you have?
You said responded on June 23rd, and you said.
Sorry, I was going to speak specifically to SB 10, but I can wait for you.
So SB 10, we just got the fact sheet on. We didn't recommend sending a letter. We recommended sending a letter on SB 478 and SB 9 opposed. And you said, I'm fine with submitting under my name, the mayor's name, only for time's sake. I'm personally still wanting to find out more about SB 478 to understand the full impact. So I think it was my understanding, and we may need to clarify the process. It was my understanding that we should have been sending out the letter on SB 478, and which was drafted by Margarita before she left on vacation, and then the SB 9 letter, which I provided some edits to, and that was to go under my signature only. So we need to follow up on those today then and see where they are. Okay.
We could follow up on SB 9, Liz. I don't recall seeing any direction on SB 9 and edits to the letter. I'm looking right now.
It's in my email dated June 22nd, and you and I have talked about this.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to get my hands on it right now. So
Margarita sent it on June 17th. That was the day I was traveling. And I said I missed the email because that was my travel day. And I responded on June 22nd, and Sergio responded on June 23rd.
So I think as far as process, we have to be careful with these emails and giving direction that would normally come from this committee outside of a notice meeting. And I only say that because our last meeting that we had, apparently there was a notice defect in the agenda time that we posted versus when we met. And we actually had a member of the public wanting to participate in those discussions. So
I'm not aware of that problem.
Well, I'm just sharing this with you. And so I've assured that member of the public that anything we do and direction we take would be part of the discussion items. We shared with them the material from that discussion at that meeting and assured them that there was no other direction taken other than what was summarized in that material. So we can do that, Liz. I just want to make sure that we capture that in this meeting just for the public record.
Okay, so that's a separate topic. So topic 1 is what's the status of the things, because at the subcommittee meeting in June, I don't remember the date, I believe we did authorize a draft. Hold on one sec.
What was our last meeting date, Margarita?
I believe she's right, June 22nd. So, City Manager, that's what I had You know, if we were going to send out a separate letter just under the mayor's letterhead and signature, I needed to know that too, because
Sorry to come, I'll be right back.
Well, what I wanted to make sure is that if that's a discussion in the committee, we just reflect that discussion here publicly. And then we'll take that appropriate action if that's the direction. What I don't want to do is have a hybrid where we have some discussions publicly and some privately. And so it's not clear to the public what actions we're taking.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you making time for this call, Sergio.
Yep, absolutely.
it's telecommunication has its positives and negatives. You're allowed, you can participate, but it's also maybe not such a good thing then. So easy to switch gears, right?
78. So how would you prefer to do this? Should we start with the list? 478, SB9, SB10? Or you want to just go through what we did, Sergio?
Are you
Margarita-
asking me, Brian?
Yeah, so Sergio, what Marguerite and I did to prepare for this is we went through those that were on our hot list that were, or at least on our watch list that the city's taken a position on that are more urgent. They've recently issued a action alert. And we were prepared to walk you through. There's a handful of those, like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah,
Just so we can create some focus on what we're going to support or not, because I sense there's some disagreement on support.
yeah, and that was my understanding of the purpose of this meeting in particular, is to discuss those that we haven't had a chance to discuss as much. There is some where I do not agree with some of the recommendations. So I just wanted to make sure we had a chance for public discussion before.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we're on the same page. That
Yep.
was what my understanding was. So we're prepared to do that. And then if Liz wants to talk to us about crafting letters on her behalf separately, that's outside of the committee's discretion. We can do that with her separately.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And I understand if we need to just touch base and reflect the record on some things that happened, but my preference would be to spend the majority of the time, as you said, on the new ones.
Yeah, so what we told Liz, we were just kind of summarizing what we were prepared, Marguerite and I prepared to do in addition to your comments. We've gone through the hot list, the action alert from the league.
Yeah,
It was recently issued, and we've compared that with our watch list and what we've taken positions on. And there's a handful of those that are upcoming, and we wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to.
yeah, and that's fine, but I totally agree. I just think we need to clarify for ourselves, because this is our first year using the new policy. And as I said, Commissioner, Councilmember Lopez and I are on the committee because we won't always see the same information the same way. So the idea is to have a dialogue, but we need to clarify how to proceed when we have a disagreement. So I'm just going to highlight, we've had what I felt was some things falling through the cracks. So we just need to figure out how we want to do it going forward. Does that sound okay, Sergio?
Yeah, and what we were just discussing is, and it sounds like there is some of that we need to do, and then, discuss some of the new items so that we have the chance to discuss. Yeah.
Okay, so excuse me for one more second. Go ahead and talk about SB9. I think that's the one that we want to cover. And the other question I have is, are we too late? And that was what I was so hoping we wouldn't be. So I'll be there in a minute.
All right, so SB9, last we met as a committee, we had that just as a watch. Cities associations obviously taking an opposition position on it. This is the one that allows for lot splits in single family zones. And did we take a position? Did this committee take a position to? I have some questions that we had in there that we had on this. That one is how are the ways that they're going to implement the city decision making into that process, and whether or not if it was amended, they could recognize minimum lot size. Some minimum lot size in there. And those
I
were my
think-
notes from our previous discussion.
Yeah. And I was still hoping to find more information. We had my take on the last meeting is we had a little bit of difficulty coming to exact agreement on some of the terms because I did want more time, and I think we got a little bit rushed on this discussion. I think it's appropriate to have the mayor submit a letter under her name. I have no problem with that. And that's where we left off. So I'm not,
Okay.
I'm not sure what the discussion on this would be.
So we'll follow up with her. I know she stepped away from the call. Margarita, we could follow up with Liz just individually on that.
Yeah. To answer her question, it's not too late. It hasn't gone up for a vote. It's going to be it's in appropriations now, so we can still submit to that committee and then resubmit when it goes to a floor vote if it proceeds to that point.
Got it.
Okay. All right, we'll work with her on that so we could save time with the committee. And then she had a note on SB 10 too. And we had that as a committee as a watch.
Yeah, as SB 10, I think she misspoke at the beginning of this call. We did not have any direction to send out a letter. And we didn't leave off the last meeting saying that. So I think,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything there right now.
Okay, so we'll leave SB 10 alone. And then SB 478.
478 was another one where I had some questions that I wanted answered first, but was also fine with the mayor submitting a letter in her own name. I'm just not seeing my notes.
Yeah, this my notes say two different issues, FAR and Attorney General. Were the notes I had for that. Let me look at.
So I know in the Attorney General issue, I was wondering how broad or how narrow the enforcement of it would be, and if it would be specifically enforcement on kind of the new elements that this is introducing as required in the housing plan, or if it would be enforcement for any aspect of it.
Yeah, and I looked more at this and
yeah, and just exactly what that means. What would the Attorney General do?
I think what this does, Margaret, is this the one that we looked at that creates the additional housing element progress?
No,
No, that was 215. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm not finding that quickly in my notes here. Sorry, Sergio.
That's okay. If there's more outreach there that needs to occur, did we get a fact sheet on that, Margarita?
we did. Let me,
Okay.
I am gonna stop sharing so that I can,
Yeah, apologize. I just have things to take care of here. Yes, we did get a fact sheet and I marked it up. Heaven knows where I put it, but I did mark it up
I have it right here, Liz.
with my markups.
Yeah, I have your email. Yes. You want me to share a screen?
yes,
Yeah,
please.
sure.
Let me find out how I do this here. Hold on. I'm not sure if you can see that.
So we were discussing 478. I don't see a fact sheet for that one. I only see SB 10.
Oh, yeah, 478. I didn't,
Oh, I'm sorry. I pulled up the wrong one. I apologize.
I don't think I saw a fact sheet.
No, I don't
478.
have that. I apologize.
Okay, so that was just my comment just now that I would like to find that out.
A better understanding of the,
Yeah, we had a draft letter on 478, but not a fact sheet on those specific questions that I had.
And
So
what were your questions, Sergio? I apologize.
What enforcement by the Attorney General entails, what exactly comes of that, and how narrow or broad is that? Is it with regards to the new aspects in 478, or is it on any element of the plan?
So the response I received from the bill's sponsor said the two provisions are related in this bill. We are allowing the Attorney General to use existing HAA protections that can be helpful to deter cities from not complying. There are a handful of laws that the AG can use, and we're just adding this one to the list.
Okay, so it is the narrower one.
So I think it's problematic.
And Margaret, did you get an answer as to what enforcement entails?
No, so they were no, that's as much as information as I got. So it didn't seem to be very defined.
Mhm.
So
so you want us to,
what's the status of this? What here? I mean, have we missed our opportunity to respond? Is
no,
what
it's going to appropriations.
which is not a particularly, it's not necessarily a place that it would be stopped. Appropriation often doesn't have a lot of say on this type of bill.
Actually, do we have an update? This went to appropriations on the 5th, right, Margarita?
Correct.
So what's the status out of that hearing?
Just on the 5th, it was sent to appropriations. So it was in committee, and it was referred to appropriations on July 5th, and it hasn't, there's no assigned appropriations hearing date.
Okay, so Sergio, my experience, you may have different experience. My experience is appropriations very rarely weighs in on a bill. It has to have significant implications for appropriations to weigh in. There have been exceptions, of course, but so to me, this has a high potential for passing. And that's why I was hoping we could send something opposing it. So if they hadn't set a hearing, I'm still very strongly in favor of opposing. Are you feeling you still need to know more?
Let me pull up the draft letter real quick. I've got it right here. I would be okay with sending a letter from a committee that focused on the enforcement issues from the Attorney General side and the potential liability there, which is my main concern. Which this letter does not focus on that. Or Mayor, if you feel strongly that this letter hits the right mark, perhaps sending under your name.
Okay. What is the date of that letter? It came from an email from Margarita.
This was the one on the 17th that has, there's 3 attachments on this email. So I think this was what you're looking at earlier.
So if we were to take that position, we'd take the position with regard to affecting local control, base it on that, Sergio?
And putting the city at liability.
Yeah, understanding the
action under
enforcement
Yeah, the
creates
attorney.
liability by having an extra enforcement tool on cities, but really what it's doing is allowing the attorney general to decide what's appropriate for our community and what to prosecute us for versus legislatively us making those decisions.
Okay, so is it still the case that this bill would prohibit cities from imposing specific floor area ratios in the housing development between 3 and 10 units? Are all of these statements here still accurate?
I believe they are. There weren't no amendments at the last.
Yeah, I believe they still do require that.
Okay, so Sergio, I appreciate writing a letter saying that you need to have clarity on those issues, but I think that's only half the story. Yes, it's local control, and yes, it puts the city at risk, but it severely limits the city's control over any project in the city of 3 to 10 units, if I'm still reading this correctly. And to me, I think that's really not a good thing for our community. And I think that's consistent with the policy direction that our committee has from the council.
And just to be clear, the draft letter that was sent out on June 17th touches on that. Sergio, is your comment that you're more comfortable based on the liability issues, not so much am I hearing the discussion correctly?
Yeah, I saw, we had some discussion of this, but I saw the purpose of the bill is being intended really against bad actors, who zone for something and then don't allow anything to actually be built there. And just looking at this letter, I have significant concerns with the third paragraph, which I don't know that we need to go point by point through the letter, but I'm not sure how accurate.
Well,
this is.
so I think, again, my experience is that legislation, particularly related to housing, is doing exactly how you just expressed it. It would try and penalize bad characters, but it in fact impacts good characters like Campbell. And it's to our detriment. And the other thing that the bill doesn't do, if I'm reading it all correctly, it has several of these bills have no mandate for affordable housing units. So all this is a developer bonanza. So if it takes away local control, it gives developers a huge financial leg up with no requirement for affordable units, and puts local control aside and puts cities at risk. To me, those are 5 really good reasons not to support this.
I'm not understanding the concerns over affordable requirements, because our city's requirements would still apply.
No, actually, so let me try and explain that point. If a developer builds 9 units, we have no affordable requirement. Our affordable inclusionary ordinance only starts to take effect at 10. So a developer could deliberately, which we have had happen in the past, could develop under this requirement of 9 units, just say, and have no affordable requirement whatsoever.
But it isn't that then an issue with the policy. I mean, it's about finding the right number. If they build, there's obviously a certain minimum number at which point it doesn't make sense to have that requirement. We wouldn't say it makes sense for one unit. So I think we can find what the right balance is, but I don't see that as an issue with this bill.
So I may be wrong, Brian, you may correct me. 10 units is the standard around most of the state, and certainly in Santa Clara County. I mean, 10 units and 15%. I think some cities tried to go to 20%, and I think there was an issue of nexus, and then there were some court cases. So where developers considered it a taking. So I don't know off the top of my head how easy it would be to go below the 10 units.
Well, certainly you'd want to create a nexus if you did that. You would have to do a study and create some nexus, but it's conceivable that we could do that if there was a connection there.
Okay, so to move on, and this is where I think Sergio and I are going to disagree on a lot of these. To me, the issue is very clear that it takes away local control. It is a benefit to developers, not to the people who need housing at a reasonable price. It puts the city at legal liability risk for a yet to be determined. I think according to the mandate we have to write a letter of opposition.
Yeah, and this is where I think we're going to disagree. There's a really, in fact, just this week there was a new one, but there's a great body of work building up to showing how building new development keeps prices stable. It picks up slack or creates slack in the marketplace. And so to me, if the difference is between a few more units that are going to have that effect and zero because the developers aren't able to build, then what's going to benefit people who are having trouble affording housing is building more housing.
Right. So please share with me any articles you have on that. I'd love to read them.
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with my information to date that this issue of build has been discussed ad infinitum for 5 years at ABAG. And the analysis by the members of the ABAG, not ABAG staff, because ABAG staff has a different political agenda, is that building and supply only has a certain relatively unpredictable impact on the affordability of housing. The cost of materials, the cost of labor, all have, and building codes, all of those things have more impact on the financial, on the cost of money. That was another, I went to a seminar by Silicon Valley at Home, and the cost of money, which now is the most favorable it's ever been, does not offset, what am I trying to say? That just supply is not sufficient to make a dent in the cost of housing. I understand building more is always a positive, but to build more under the language of this bill, I believe, according to our mandate, is detrimental to our city. So I don't think we can support this.
Right, and that's where, Brian, as you were saying, some of the issues with local control, I could see opposing this. I take specifically issue, I question the accuracy of the third paragraph here.
So if we were to take that third paragraph out there and add some language about the liability created for cities and the one size fits all, would that kind of find a middle ground between the two positions?
I would be okay with that. I would prefer, although I know that it's unlikely with this one, that it, and I thought this was what we had discussed, but I may be misremembering that we did that, Brian, and took a oppose unless amended position at the very least. I would be okay with that.
So
I'd be okay to do oppose unless amended, but I think the third paragraph is very relevant. Because I mean, that's one, isn't this the one where I gave you a list of housing projects to take a look at? And see what was being built, and nobody was building affordable units. They were only building market rate and above.
I'm not sure if that was if that was for this one, but
I think it probably was, but I don't remember that clearly either.
okay.
My strong preference is to oppose this, and I would add a paragraph about the risk to the cities and your points. But I think paragraph 3 is very important. Now, the question is, I would offer a compromise, and we probably need to revisit what our policy directions are from council. I think we have to. Margarita, can you pull up the policy statement from the council? That's part of our committee charge.
Yes,
I think we have an agreement over what those points are. I think it's a disagreement over interpretation of the data of whether this will make housing more affordable or not.
Fair comment. But I think that I'll go there. I'll go there with you. Yes. Okay.
But on the grounds of local control, I can, I see the other points and some of the other concerns here.
So
What is your
take
proposal?
a crack at an oppose unless amended for that, and we'll leave in local control issues. We'll look at that third paragraph to put in some language about liability and what you mentioned, Sergio, about the Attorney General enforcement.
But I do want to leave in something that says there is nothing in this bill that encourages construction of affordable housing. There's nothing in the bill that does that.
No, it's probably a true statement.
I agree, it's a true statement. But I think we're gonna, if that's our criteria for any kind of housing bill, I mean, I don't, and this is just me personally, I don't think any one of these bills is gonna solve the problem on its own. I think, Mayor, as you were listing, there's a number of factors that go into the costs, and so I don't think any of these will be or could be a panacea. But I think, as we're saying, from just the rash of stories of people hundreds of thousands of above asking price, where even if you're paying asking price on cash, that's still not enough now to buy a home. The crisis that we're seeing is not just for affordable housing, it's for any type of housing. I think that's becoming pretty clear.
So I don't, but to me, you just made my point. You just reinforced my point, which is that the only thing that's being built is market rate above, high end McMansions.
And not enough of it.
Yeah, so.
Will this be a McMansion, or will this be ultra dense housing? Because that's where I take issue with the third paragraph. Is I'm not sure it is ultra dense. And if
well, I'm okay
if
with
it's
changing
replacing a single unit, I don't understand how that's a McMansion as opposed to the one unit that was there before.
So the one unit that was there before was as defined, an older multifamily housing and replace it with ultra dense or denser market rate housing. That's, so the example, not the best example, but the example is the housing project on Winchester and Payne, I think, in San Jose, where they tore down rental units that were very affordable and built a high-end apartment complex with double the density. And everyone who was living there lost their home and could not afford to move back in. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. They're demolishing, even if it's a single family ranch, which Campbell has tons of in our R1 zones, and that might be bought for $1 million, just say, but if it's redeveloped for 4 to 10 units, that those 4 to 10 units or 4 to 9 units, whatever, could easily sell for $1 million a piece. And that doesn't do anything to make housing more affordable. Even if it,
I don't think it matters how old or, you know, how small the house is. It's going to sell for over $1 million if it's a single unit. And I'm not sure that there's a 1-to-1 ratio for the price of the old unit as compared to the new ones.
okay, I'll have to see if I can find you some literature on that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that on that. I really would. So let's we'll have an exchange.
All right, we'll see if we can do that. So trying to move forward here.
Yeah.
Because I think this is going to be setting a precedent. So
Yeah.
Margaret, did you find our guidelines?
I did.
Could you put that up for us, please?
Yes.
Okay, so what are they? You're going to have to make it super big because I cannot read it at that scale.
Which, so there's the purpose, role of the committee, policy scope.
The policy scope. Okay, so is it just those points there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so directly impacts the city's finances, responsibilities, legal authority, public safety, and operation. Almost anything will do that, so we'll take that cautiously. Increases or decreases local revenue. This would obviously increase local revenue. Protects or reduces local control. So that one, it does in fact reduce local control. One could argue that directly impacts cities' finances if there's a fine involved, but we don't know the answer. Is consistent with existing city policy or current city strategic priorities. Again, it's hard to answer this because as we go through the general plan housing element update, our policies may change and our strategic study may change and creates an unfunded mandate. So it comes down to, so of those 5 points, Sergio, what do you think would be relevant to this discussion?
Well, I think, as you say, that there's a positive impact on finances and revenue, but clearly reduces local control. And again, D is hard, but I would argue that in some ways, this one, a lot of these housing bills would probably help with some of what those goals are going to have to end up being.
Yeah, but don't exist now, which is what makes our discussion hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, lessons learned, we may have to go back to council and have more of a discussion about these guidelines for us going forward, kind of thing. Right, well,
yeah, I think that's probably going to come up a lot. I think a lot of these will kind of, you can make the case both ways.
Exactly. So I am strongly opposed to this bill because of the reasons I stated. I am amenable under duress to come up with a oppose unless modified and to take the letter and revise paragraph 3 to say puts the city at risk for unknown liability. And I would like to put in something that there is no mandate for affordable units, thereby relying only on an increased number of units to improve the housing shortage, but not necessarily the affordable housing shortage.
I'm fine with that last part, Mayor, as that's clearly a factual statement. And, you know, just stating for the record for our discussion here that I'm not convinced every single bill needs to have that goal, but I'm fine with including it here.
That makes sense to you, then Margarita and Brian, are you okay drafting something along that line?
Yeah, did you get that last one, Margarita? I'm just taking notes here. Okay.
All right, good compromise. We may need to use that as a formula going forward. All right, moving along. The next one you're recommending we discuss, Margarita?
AB 215. It's on page 1 of the bills to watch. I'm gonna share my screen in just a second.
Yeah, this is the one that when I read our description in our handout, and I read how the league's responding. The league really sees this as creating almost an additional review cycle of the housing element in addition to what's being reviewed. And Andrea shared with me, did you share this with the group, Andrea, the sample from the league?
Margarita.
I'm sorry, Margarita, the league letter.
I can pull it up.
Please. This one speaks a lot to Sergio's concerns from the previous discussion.
Yes. And I'll make it big. Are you able to see a letter on screen?
No, we're still seeing the policy.
You may have to stop sharing and then.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I could just read, just for the sake of time, the league, I think in their introduction paragraph, they say this bill would create a new mid-cycle regional housing need progress determination process. Here in the first paragraph that Margarita's pulled up here, and mandate an open-ended consultation between cities and county where housing production has lagged specified levels, and the California Housing Department of primary concern or organization is the provision of the bill that would create new mandate for the subset of jurisdictions to achieve HCD's designation as pro-housing. So it's kind of this open-ended ongoing review of your housing element at all times.
So it could be an unfunded mandate, clearly loss of local control, potential loss of revenue.
In what way would it be loss of revenue? Are you thinking fines or the enforcement? Yeah.
So obviously anything that's open-ended is not good, but having to go through additional reviews cycles would be unfunded.
In the league's letter, Margarita, the second last paragraph deals with the fines and the Attorney General enforcement. See right in the middle of that paragraph, the Attorney General in turn can bring the local agency to court to compel compliance, becoming subject to significant fines.
So the whole cost of court and everything else.
The idea, I think the big issue here is it's, you have targets, you plan for your targets over a period of time, and then anytime during that planning cycle that there's a complaint filed with HCD or HCD decides that you're not moving quickly enough, you're held to these standards instead of being held to the standards to plan for it and to achieve it at the end. Just constant, open-ended.
Yeah, open-endedness. That is an extremely good point on many of these issues, which is that and that's why I have a lot of trouble with all of this legislation also, Sergio, is that cities, I mean, there are cities that don't, but the vast, vast, vast majority have approved housing elements. And cities can demonstrate, which we have, complying with all the requirements of the approved housing element. We don't turn down projects. I mean, speaking just for Campbell, but whatever. We don't turn down projects. We, I mean, we look for opportunities. We consider rezoning. You know, we've supported ADUs before this. So there's a lot that we're already doing. And to say that out of the blue, and I'll give you another example, out of the blue, an agency or a developer could, I'll use the phrase, blackmail a city, saying, I'm going to complain to HCD that you're not complying with your housing element. And rather than go through the legal case to prove that we are, the city maybe have to acquiesce to the pressure rather than the principle of, you know, saying, yes, we are doing what we should be doing. I mean, it's just a Pandora's box of what ifs. And cities need something solid to go by. You know, we have a housing element. We have it approved. It says where the housing can be developed. We are supporting density bonus. We are supporting inclusionary. We are supporting the mix of use of affordable units within the projects. We're doing all of that. So this just throws all consistency. It moves the goalpost. What's a good athletic example? It's literally moving the goalpost, not only further away, but to the left, to the right, you know, whatever. We don't know what's going to happen.
So this subcommittee had taken just a watch position. It's going to a hearing next week, the 15th. So if we wanted to submit a position letter.
So what committee is it going to, Margarita?
Appropriations.
Yeah. So it's already gone through assembly? Has it, I'm assuming
Started in the assembly, so it's in the Senate Appropriations. It's in the opposite house.
so it's already been passed by the assembly.
Correct.
Yeah. So Sergio, we'll both learn a lesson to see if my past experience is true about appropriations being a committee that has no significant impact on this stuff. I hope I'm wrong. What would you like to do?
You know, Mayor, it seems like there may be a fiscal element. I'm trying to find more clarity about this, but it sorry, I'm just trying to find clarity on whether there's reimbursement. Yeah, no, so not from this bill. So maybe not as relevant to appropriations. You know, I understand those concerns. I'm a little bit more neutral towards this one because I do see where Campbell has put in the work and made good faith efforts, and I think this is really targeted at cities, and I won't name specific ones, but who submit plans that clearly that rely on housing that clearly is not going to be built, and there's a lot of examples where people have really pulled apart the plans and shown but why this wouldn't be possible. And I, I understand why it's difficult. There needs to be some kind of accountability, but you can't just for cities who aren't bad actors. I don't know. I see both sides of it. I'm just a little bit less concerned that Campbell would fall into some of these categories, because I do think that historically, and certainly in this cycle, that we have that commitment to submitting good faith plans, and I'm not sure that that we fall behind to the degree that this bill is concerned with. But given the clear local control implications, I'd be fine with submitting a letter at this stage.
Okay, all right. And you might find some language in the city and the cities, Cal cities to help.
Yes.
Yeah, in particular, it sounds like I haven't taken a close look at the letter, Margarita, but the language that Brian cited on the enforcement and the Attorney General provisions, that might be helpful for this.
Thank you.
Okay, we got it on that one.
Okay, the next one is
And we've all, I just want to do a time check because I do have a harder stop, and I want to get to some of the new bills.
which one do you want to do next?
So the only one that is also moving on to appropriations is the one right below it, AB 1401. It was in committee, Senate Housing today. It passed out of housing, so it's moving on to appropriations. Has to do with parking requirements, eliminating parking requirements. In prior years with similar bills, the city has submitted opposed letters. So if we wanted to submit a letter on this bill, AB 1401, then now is the time to receive that direction.
So Sergio, I'll offer a phrasing here. I have limited support for what I call social engineering legislation. It has value, obviously, and the best example is, not selling cigarettes to kids under 18, not selling alcohol under 21, and not allowing smoking in public spaces and all of that. To me, those all have a broader social implication of health and well-being. This one is trying to force people out of their cars. And I have offered solutions in the past that we could allow developers to have, I'm going to say, if you have a 1 acre parcel, you could leave, I'm just using numbers, a ½ acre vacant, but with an approved development. And then you put the parking on the ½ acre. And when the demand for the parking goes away, they can develop the second parcel. Then that would be by right. And to me, Campbell's a good example of where our streets are too narrow. Many of our streets are too narrow, particularly around Railway and Dillon and Gilman, to have street parking. And the assumption that in a short period of time and due to location, the cars won't be needed and won't be owned. There's no experience that I've seen that justifies the assumptions that the volume of cars, even in proximity to public transit, dissipate. And until we get a more robust public transportation system, the elimination of parking is for me very problematic. I mean, downtown, it means anything built within a ½ mile of the railroad station in all of downtown, the prune yard wouldn't have to provide any parking. We would might be forced to allow them to develop the parking lots at the prune yard. All the development along Winchester and along Bascom and possibly Hamilton could all be built without parking. So this has a direct impact on the safety of Campbell. as well as taking away local control.
Anyway, can you elaborate on the safety aspect?
The street width with fire trucks, also, where do police cars, if there's an incident, the streets are full, there's no place for police cars to go. By definition, Brian, I think you can probably be more citing the right example. I thought there was state law that said all parking must be accommodated on site. You can't, public parking, public street parking was for the public and the incidental use of everyone. It was not a right of a project to utilize the public streets. So if you look at Railway, this is a minor example where the apartment complex on Railway, we had at city expense put in new curb, gutter, sidewalk, street trees on the whole length of Railway up to Avalon. And when the developer came in, they said they needed street parking to facilitate the rental of the units, even though they had enough parking. So the city, the developer paid for it, but the city ripped out, I don't know, 8 trees. You can tell which trees are replaced there because the street wasn't wide enough. There's only parking on one side of that street. And I think in other places, there's no parking on either side of the street. Dillon and Gilman, I think there's no parking. I think there are other places in the city. And you can tell there's a problem when you look at Madison and also some of the others when there's no parking on the streets, they're 20-foot wide. There's a lot of competition for the parking on the public streets versus their private streets. It just provides congestion and sets up competition for street parking because people are still going to own cars. 5 years, I'd say 10, but
Mayor, I'm really sorry. We are at 3 p.m. and I do have to go.
Okay.
I just have, this bill wouldn't apply to Campbell. It's for cities over 75,000. And there's one requirement for over 600,000, another for over 75,000. So we would clearly not be eligible. And this may be, I made comments to the authors of these bills in the past that it is tougher for smaller cities as we tend to not have control over our public transit system. So it's a little bit harder to plan, which is generally their goal when I've spoken with the authors to have that be aligned. So I don't think.
So I'm sorry, is there language in the bill, Margarita? Is there language in the bill?
Right there.
I just pulled it up. I see the count. Yep, city population of 75. Yeah, this was an amendment.
Okay, so it's an amendment. I was not aware of that. Thank you for that update, Sergio.
Yeah, that may have been very recent.
Yeah, so I would not send a letter one way or the other.
Okay.
I wouldn't support it, but I wouldn't oppose it then.
Okay, so no, just continue to watch.
Yeah, for information.
Okay, since we're at ending time, just 2 very, very quick updates. On page 7, there was also an amendment, AB 339, which is a communications bill requiring teleconference options and closed captioning options post, in COVID era. Also doesn't apply to Campbell because it's for populations now greater than 250. And the bill right below that, the SB 278 dealing with public employment retirement law, it's been placed on suspense. So that bill's in the suspense.
That's a good one. We weren't supporting that one. Okay, we've got to find a way to move more forward. And I apologize for my interruptions at the earlier meeting. I just have to take care of things here when I can.
If we think we need to, I'd be happy to find a time next week. And if we can block off, if we could say, let's set a minimum of 2 hours, I'm happy to find a time where that works.
Okay, I'm available Monday and Friday. That's it.
Okay.
Sergio, how's your Monday or Friday?
Probably Friday would be better.
Okay, so we have a council meeting on Friday. So before that, what time is the council meeting on Friday?
I want to say 2:00.
Yeah. So before or after?
Brian, maybe if we move our check-in, we can use the time before.
Yeah, sorry, I have it's my time, this 5 o'clock is the council meeting. I have an 8 o'clock board meeting. So
I have,
be better.
Liz, I have you one-on-one at 11 and I have Sergio at 1.
Okay, Diana canceled that for some reason on Friday, the 16th.
Yes. It's not on your calendar. So-
Maybe we can follow up offline about scheduling. I think we have a good,
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
can find some
All right,
time.
it is. All right, Friday, the 16th, we'll try for some suggestions.
that sounds good.
Thanks.
Okay, Diana will follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, so I do think we need to clarify some processes. Make everybody's life easier.
Yeah, and I think if we have a little bit more time in the next meeting, we can do that. We'll find a time next Friday, Liz, that works for everyone.
But am I being clear on what my concerns are about process, just so we're all on the same wavelength?
Yeah, of course. None of us want things to fall through the cracks. So we'll follow up with you separately on a letter for SB9. Sergio said he was fine with that.
Okay,
So while you were away, Sergio mentioned that. So Margarita and I will follow up with you directly with the letter for that.
okay. All right, and then take a look at the Cities Association and the California Cities letters with some language
78, I'm sorry, 428.
for number 9. Is that the one Brian just said?
Oh, for 215, yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that'll be helpful and make it quicker.
Thank
All
you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
All right.
We just got to organize ourselves. And I would like to know your assessment. For me, once it gets out of the housing committee and either legislative branch, it doesn't matter what we do. The finance group is perfunctory review. So, I hate to have us spend all this time and effort and then really miss the schedule. So we'll work on that too.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. And Brian, I think we have another link.
Yeah, we have another link for us.
Okay, all right, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.